Okay, and with that, it looks like we're recording, so we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. It'll be an introduction to the NRS online courses. And to kick us off, I'm going to ask Larry Candelli, Director of the NRS Support Project, to please just start us off with a few words of welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marcella. I'd also like to welcome you all. And we're going to talk today about the NRS online courses that are available to you. I think we first started developing courses about 15 years ago, so they're not new. And as time goes on, we usually get ideas from our trainings or from you all about what you need, and we develop short courses anywhere from a few minutes to sometimes facilitated courses that take several weeks. And as we are approaching the end of this year and then into 2019, we'll be releasing a couple of new courses. So we thought this would be a good time to make sure you're all familiar with the courses. We have a website we implemented, a revised website we implemented earlier this year, so I don't know how much you've all had a chance to look at it over the year, but we wanted to make sure you were familiar with it and where the courses were and what was available. So if you aren't familiar, it'll be a refresher, and if you're not, it'll be a way to learn where they are, how to access them, and what's available. And then, as I said, later this year or early next year, we'll have a couple of new courses that we think you'll like. So I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, who is Delphinia Brown, and she is responsible for developing and maintaining our courses. So Delphinia, would you like to take it away?
Larry, before Delphinia starts, I just want to make sure that we cover a couple of things in terms of the logistics for participating so that everybody has the best experience possible. And so to that end, as I mentioned, as those of you who joined us early, I'm going to ask that you please mute yourself, and to do that, you see we have a screenshot there of what you need to do. Just click on the little telephone receiver icon and click mute my phone, and later on when we're doing the Q&A, you'll have an opportunity to share or to verbalize your questions if you would like to, and in that case, you'll be able to click that icon again to unmute yourself. As I said, you will have an opportunity to ask your questions out loud, but throughout, while Delphinia is talking to us, please feel free to submit questions anytime in the chat pod, and you can include both content questions if you have a question about something that Delphinia is talking about, or if you have any technical assistance issues, like the volume, or if you can't see, or whatever, so that we'll know to help you with that. As I said, we will have an opportunity for some Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we will give you an opportunity to raise your hand. There's a little person raising their hand icon at the top of your screen that you'll be able to use to do that, to let us know that you would like to ask a question, and then we'll unmute you, and you'll be able to ask your question if you don't want to just type it into the chat pod as it comes up. If for whatever reason we don't have an opportunity to answer your question, we will follow up with you. And the one key piece I do want to mention before we get started with our presentation today is that when we close out of the webinar, there will a link will pop up to the evaluation for the webinar. But throughout the webinar, if for whatever reason you need to leave early, or if you are ready to leave the webinar before we do close out at the very end, at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, in addition to several other useful links, you will find one that says Webinar Evaluation. And the only way that we're able to improve our webinars is by getting your feedback. So we do ask that you complete that for us so that we can improve for next time. And with that, I will now hand it over to Delphinia. And for those of you who don't already know Delphinia, Delphinia Brown is part of AIR's Learning Technologies team, and she provides distance learning support for the NRS project. All right, so Delphinia, take it away.
Thank you, Larry and Marcella, for setting us up for a great webinar. And thank you all for being here today. As they mentioned, I work with the Learning Technologies team at the American Institute for Research. And for a while now on the NRS project, I've supported our distance learning tasks. Some of your names look familiar because you participated in our facilitated training sessions. I've met some of you at some of our in-person training. But most of my work lately has been behind the scenes working on these self-paced courses and managing our new learning management system, Moodle, which I'm going to talk about today. So again, thank you all for joining us. Before I go any further, it helped me to know who's out there in our Adobe Connect room, just so I know how to tailor what I'm saying today. So if you wouldn't mind, in the chat room, would you just state your state and your role? And as Marcella mentioned, we're also going to use the chat for Q&A in addition to you all just kind of unmuting your phones when you feel the need to speak up. So I just want to also test that you're able to do that. Great, thank you all for typing in. So I see some state directors, some professional development coordinators. Welcome. I see some of our colleagues on the NRS project have joined us here. So the NRS courses are actually developed by all of our staff. So I don't want to take credit for developing the NRS courses, and you might have worked with some of those staff as well. I'll talk about our development process in a bit. But thank you for introducing yourselves. There are about 41 of us on this webinar, so feel free to make introductions to folks and connections to folks you haven't met already as we go on. Great. So just another test of the features. I'd like you to raise your hand if you've taken an NRS course. I just want to make sure everyone's able to do that. So right above where the PowerPoint slide is showing on your screen, you go to where the hand is raised and click on that, or the pull-down arrow to change your status. Okay. So many of you have taken NRS courses. I got a green check. I think that means you've taken a lot of NRS courses. Okay. And go ahead and applaud. Use that same hand raise area to change your status to applause if you are responsible for professional development in your state. Okay. So there's a good mix of us on the call today who have professional development responsibilities, who have taken an online course with us before, and some who have not taken a course before. So hopefully there's something in this for all of you today. And if not, please direct me with your questions to the information you need to hear during this webinar. So let me go over what we're going to cover in the hour or less that we have together. I'm going to give a brief overview of the NRS online courses, just share some fun facts about how states are using them. And then I'm going to walk you through how to use the NRS courses, mostly how you can access them, create a user account, and register for a course on your own. Then I hope we can get into some sort of conversation either through chat or by voice about tips and ideas and strategies for using the NRS courses, and also FAQs and your questions. We presently don't have an FAQ site for the online courses, and this is a resource that is in development, so I'd love to get your ideas about what might be useful to you. As Larry mentioned, our courses went through a facelift in late 2017, and we also changed our website, so you may have questions about how to navigate those spaces or just how the resources are used, where supplementary resources are. So I'm hoping that we can get to a conversation about what questions we can answer for you and document so that the site and the resources are easier to use. So let's start with some fun facts about the NRS online courses. And for this, I'm going to ask you all to respond in a poll. So first question, can you guess the number of online courses? Okay, so the results are coming in, and it looks like we're split so far. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the results. We can move on. So if you guessed 8, that was correct. We have 8 NRS online courses that are self-paced. This is somewhat of a trick question to allow me to talk about some of our other types of courses. We also have facilitated online courses that are not open to everyone. Those courses are usually engagements of 6 to 8 weeks, and they're by invitation only. We also have courses related to our face-to-face training that are also by invite only, but we have 8 courses that are available to anyone who can access our site at any time of the day. So we refer to them as on-demand courses. And for the most part, those courses follow a similar format. There's some reading of content followed by a few questions. There may be some activities that you do offline, so some of them are blended. And they usually last anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. And at the end of the course, upon completion, there's a certificate you can print to show that you've gone through all of the major sections of the course and you've at least accessed the content. So great job for those who guessed 8. Let me just talk a little bit more about the actual courses. We have divided our courses into 2 groups right now that may change as we add more courses on in the future. We have our data quality course, which is the NRS data flow course. And we have several courses on data use, using NRS data, Mythbusters, data systems, dashboards, NRS Detective. All of these might sound familiar because they're based on training that we've done in the past and repeated in person. So often when the training is concluded, we'll use the resources that we shared in the training to adapt the content for an online interface so that state directors can continue to use this as needed as a resource, and also folks who aren't able to attend our in-person training are able to learn some of the same content. So I'll just pose this question and see if anyone has an idea. Why the data flow course? We just have one. It's an important one, but why data flow for anyone who's taken that course? I see at least one person typing, and I'll just remind you, if you want, you can raise your hand.
It looks, Delphina, like everybody has their hand still raised from earlier.
Oh. Can you clear the hands raised?
There you go.
Thank you.
So you'll need to raise your hand again if you would like to speak.
Thank you. Right. Thanks for that reminder, too. So Nancy writes to help understand the NRS EFL levels. It's a great point. We definitely consider this a basic course for those just starting out learning about the NRS and how data is managed. It's sort of foundational to some of the other courses. So if you are responsible for professional development and you'd like to recommend a course, For beginners, this is a good one to start with. And as Larry mentioned, we're going to have some other courses that come up down the line to help beginners as well. The data flow course, by the way, is just about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. So let me go through some of the other courses in case you're not familiar with those. So we just talked about data flow. So using NRS data deals with the basics of data analysis. And this is also a very short course. It's about 10 to 15 minutes. Very basic techniques covered for how to use data in the analysis of educational program data specifically. So another good one for beginners. Our Mythbusters course is another popular one, and that was a fun training to do live, also fun online. This one is on the other end of the spectrum. It takes about 140 to 180 minutes to complete. It's a multiple-part training, and we cover a detailed model and approach to assist states and their local programs with using NRS data to bust common myths and to conduct research about their students, their teachers, and their programs. So that's a great one if you're going to be in the role of a data use specialist, maybe as an orientation to NRS data and how to use it. Our report cards course is another fun one. This one we've done in person. We've had a facilitated course around this, and we offer this self-paced option for folks who aren't able to participate in those trainings. And this self-paced training, which takes about 80 to 105 minutes to complete, individuals learn how to create a report card for their program to report on their progress to other stakeholders. And this is based on a guide that we have available on our website called Demonstrating Results, Developing State and Local Report Cards for Adult Education. So there are some tips in there about how to structure your data so that it makes sense to a user or a viewer who's not familiar with NRS data, or what program outcomes mean and how that translates into data. And our data systems training, this is about an hour in terms of completion time. And in this training, we present steps for planning and implementing a data system, and that can be used for years to come. We have a data system specialist as part of our NRS support project, and he developed this content with some lessons learned from some of the technical assistance we've provided to states around developing their data systems. Okay, so just a few more. Our data dashboards course, I don't know if anyone's taken that one. It's similar to the NRS, Developing NRS Report Cards for Adult Education course, and that it covers how to summarize and present data, but this is generally for internal audiences, and its purpose is to help you use your data or display it in a way to help you make decisions, understand challenges that your programs might be facing, and highlight progress toward your goals and outcomes for your program. And this one takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete. This is also based on a training, so there's a guide available on our NRS website that can accompany this training. The Data Detective course, this is another fun one. This is Learning to be an NRS Data Detective. It's a 7-part course, so it lasts about 3 to 5 hours, and there are several readings and tools that we introduce in the training to help you use your data to monitor performance and understand how you can create a plan to evaluate your program and performance. So I'll pause there because I see a hand up from Carla. So Carla, if you're able to, you can unmute your phone line and speak, or you can go ahead and type your question in the chat. So Carla, I think, put her hand down. I'm not sure if a question's coming. Okay, I'll continue. So the last course that I wanted to mention is the Data Use Guide, and this one is pretty popular. It's based on a guide that we have as well, and it's a quick description of how to use NRS data. And again, that guide is available on our NRS website. So you might notice a theme here that, like we said, many of these trainings have accompanying guides that you can use, especially if you're a professional development professional or specialist, to supplement the training content that we provide through the self-paced courses. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So let's move on. Question for you all. We're curious about how you decide which course to take. So if you don't mind, if you would just in the chat tell us how you make a determination about what course you're going to take as an individual, or if you're a professional development specialist or responsible for that, how you decide which courses that your staff will take. And again, I invite you to unmute if you like, or raise your hand if you'd like us to unmute you. Janae says all. Janae says she takes all the classes, all the courses. I think, Janae, you must be responsible for our high completion rate, you and your team. And I see some others typing. So thanks for sharing your responses. So Donna says, I think it's determined based upon your experience and expertise in the strategic work happening. It's a great point. Danielle says at the end of the year, they determine which courses to take based on what we see our programs need and how our office can best assist programs. Excellent. And some others are typing too, so I'll just wait for those responses to come in. So in our prior iteration of the NRS online courses, for those of you who've been with us for a while, you may remember they were HTML based. They were very plain text. They still are for the most part, but they were based on our website, the NRS web, and we had kind of a description of the courses, and you'd answer some questions, and it would kind of guide you towards certain courses, but we never got a great sense of how professional development folks decide what courses to offer to participants or to encourage folks to take. And there are certain times throughout the year where we see a huge spike in states or programs doing courses. So it may be in June, this is just an example, that 300 people from Georgia have decided to take the data flow course, and we're not sure why. So your responses are really helpful in helping us understand how you make decisions about what courses to promote or require of your staff. Okay. So it sounds like for the most part, many of you are doing some needs assessment on your end and then making decisions based on the courses available. So as we go on, I'd like you to just chime in or think about and share, if you're willing, what might be helpful to you in making those decisions, what we can provide by way of description of the course or any other supplementary materials we can to help you figure out sequence or scope of the training, even sharing the objectives maybe in a different format. Okay, well, thank you all for answering, and I'll just move on, keep time here. So another fun fact, we have quite a few online users since we've reformatted the training. I wonder if you all might take a guess about how many online users there are. Okay, I'll give you another couple of seconds to respond, and then I'll go ahead and broadcast results so you can see. Okay. So about 25 and counting of you guessed close to the right answer, 1,000 to 1,099, but we're actually at 1,100 plus and counting. So every day we have new users sign up for accounts, and most of those users are enrolling in multiple self-paced online courses. I would say on average they're taking at least 2 to 3 courses, because our number of folks completing the courses is about 3 times that number, and we'll talk about what completion looks like in a little bit. So quite a few folks logging on, creating accounts, and completing multiple courses. Okay. And can you guess which might be our most popular course? Using NRS data. Looks like it has the lead. I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the results so you all can see how everyone's responding, and then in the poll, because I think you all have a good sense of this already. But using NRS data is in fact our most popular course. We had 303 people complete the training just this year, not counting last year or all our prior years, because that one's been out for a while now. And I think people may like it because it's short, but maybe you can tell me in the chat why you might be recommending this course, or what about it is drawing people to it. So as Larry mentioned, we're working on some new online courses, and every couple of years or so on this project, we create a new self-paced online course. And I'd love to hear your ideas about what our next online course might be. So Chris has already kind of started us off and said that he would love to see a replacement for the data quality guide training. Are there other topics that you're interested in? Please go ahead and type them into the chat. I'd love to hear your ideas. And you may also unmute yourself. I'm going to keep reminding folks to do that if you feel so inclined. So I don't see any ideas coming into the chat at this time, but I invite you all to send any ideas you might have to us at nrs@air.org if after this training and after, after this webinar and after our conversation, some other ideas come up. But I'll just keep us moving on for now. Okay, so I'd like to show you how to access the courses on NRSOnline. And I'll go through this really quickly for those of you who've done it before. So the first step is to go directly to our course site, which is courses.nrsweb.org. And there's a way to reach the course site through the NRS webpage, but you can also type in this URL and get there directly. And the NRS web site for our project and the NRS course site look very similar, but you'll know you're on the NRSOnline course site because that login screen appears right up front. So if you don't see that, you're not in the right place.
And Dulcinea, I just wanted to mention, sorry to interrupt, in the bottom right-hand corner where the webinar evaluation can be linked to are those links as well.
Thank you for pointing that out, Marcella. So if you happen to go to the NRS web first and you're looking for our online courses, if you go to the menu up top, click on Technical and Training Assistance and drill down to the self-paced online courses, you'll find a lot of information there on the site about the courses. A lot of it I've covered already in the webinar. There's an overview of the courses, talks about what you might learn in each of the courses, and then there's some resources on the side about how to create a login. So this is the description of each of the courses that's available from the NRS website at nrsweb.org with the completion times projected for each course. Okay, so if you've never used the site, you must create your own user login, and it's pretty simple to do. The instructions appear right on the login screen. So if you're here for your first time, you follow these steps and you'll have an account. All of our self-paced courses are self-enrollable. We restrict access to the other courses, but the self-paced courses, anyone can enroll at any time. And to enroll, you just need to provide some basic information to create an account. You need to create a username, a password that meets our security requirements, and provide an email address, your first and last name, and the state where your adult education program is located. So there's not much to it. There's another step after that that requires you to verify the email address you provided. This is just to prevent us from hackers, for the most part, accessing our site. And they try, believe me. So we have some security requirements on the back end to protect our site from that. You cannot enroll in a course until you verify your account, and sometimes I get emails from frantic users wanting to enroll in a course because they have a deadline coming up and they can't get in and they've forgotten the steps. So this is very important to mention to any users who you're required to complete a training. They must go visit their email account in order to access the course. And once they're logged in and after their account is verified, they'll see a dashboard. The dashboard will not list any courses until they actually go back and self-enroll, but the dashboard is unique to each individual who has a user account. It'll list all of the courses you're enrolled in, and it might be a mix of self-paced and some of our facilitated courses or courses linked to the training. Every time you come to the site, you'll need to log in unless you've enabled cookies on your end that save your username and password, but for the most part, you'll need to log in. Okay, now to enroll in a course, you just need to navigate to the course and click on the course name or click to enter the course and then click Enroll Me, and then you'll be immediately enrolled and you'll have access to the course materials. Okay. So if for some reason you want to change your username or password, you can edit your profile. You simply click on your name at the top right in the green and click on Profile, and then you can make those edits there. Okay, so this is a sample of pretty typical one of our self-paced courses, what the course actually looks like. There's a brief description of the course. There's a little gift box you get to unwrap or click on to open up the course. And then there's information about the completion certificate. And the completion certificate is not active or not downloadable until you go through certain points of the training. So I get questions about this as well. folks may skip some slides or certain key questions and not be able to complete the course, and they may wonder where their certificate is. Usually it's because you've skipped over something. The certificate will become active once the learning management system registers that you've completed all of the key activities. So I like to tell people not to skip over slides. You can do that in the menu once you've completed all of the materials, but it's best to use the previous and next button. So that's a little tip for anyone taking the course. Okay, this is just a close-up view of what I just described with the description and the certificate. Okay, so our certificate is pretty basic. No frills certificate at this time. At any point, once you're issued a certificate, you can go back and retrieve it, but we encourage people to print the certificate or save it to their desktop as a PDF, which is the format where it's shared, so that you have a record of it. And the certificate will include the date and the name you used to register for the course. So this is just a sample on the screen. Okay. And another common question I get is, how do I change my password? So I just want to point out that on the home page of the course site, there's a forgotten password link. It may not look like a link, which is why some folks miss it, but you can actually click on that, and it'll prompt you to reset your password, sending you an email. So that's something that anyone can use, but we're happy to support that if folks need help with it. Okay, so before we talk about tips and ideas, I just want to pause and see if there are any questions about some of the technical aspects of getting onto the site or creating an account, printing a certificate, tracking progress, or anything like that. And I don't see anything in the chat or any hands raised at this moment, so I'll take that as a cue to keep going. Oh, I see Beth is typing, so we'll just wait and see what Beth's question or comment is. Beth says they're having trouble getting hyperlinks to PDFs to work. And Beth, I think you mean within the forum courses, sorry, within the online courses. Yes. Thank you for sharing that issue. So some of our PDFs are to content that has been shifted on our website to other locations, so we're in the process of making sure all those links are correct. But whenever you encounter something like that, please let us know so we can address that right away. Thank you, Beth. Okay. So I'll move on to talking about tips, ideas, and strategies for using the NRSOnline courses. So here are some tips for individuals. And this is somewhat related to the comment that Beth made. It's important to check for announcements on the site homepage, because occasionally we'll have to suspend use of the courses temporarily while we make updates to them. And I think we've only done this a couple of times because we respect that. At any given time, many of you are trying to access the course or the courses, but usually there's a few weeks notice, and then we make the site announcement that the course is unavailable and make updates. I'd like to tell folks to enroll right away so that they can make sure they're able to do that and then log in to verify their account. Like I mentioned already, you want to be sure you're printing and saving your certificate to store with your files. And also mapping out time to complete the training is important. Some of the courses are really short, but some of them take quite a few hours to complete. And some of those courses that are longer, we suggest that you consult with other people in your program, or you go and use some of your own data. So the suggested completion times are just estimates, but depending on how your program is structured or the professional development requirements, you may need more time than what we have specified in our estimates to actually complete the activities. And then finally, to answer another question I see pop up, if you need support, if there are issues with the courses, or if you'd like to use the courses in a different way and require different sort of access, please send an email to nrs@air.org. So I wonder if in the chat you might share some ideas that you would have about how to use the course the courses for individuals. Tips, strategies, things you share with folks you assign the courses to, or how you yourself as an individual might use the courses. And if you're more comfortable with speaking, you can also unmute yourself if you like. Or raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Okay, I see some folks are typing. I'm waiting, just anticipating what the the comments will be. But thank you, Andrea, for sharing your ideas. I'm going to move on and also talk about some of the ways that groups can use this training. So one suggestion is to blend the training. And by that we mean create opportunities for folks to do the training in groups. So synchronous activities, you might do that with discussion prompts or reflection questions that you share with users before the training, so that they have those questions in mind as they complete the training, or similarly questions that they reflect on or discuss after they complete the training. You might create worksheets to accompany the training in addition to the ones we have folks download from within the training. You may have a webinar following or before you host the training to tie content between some of the courses together. You could offer a live chat if you have the facilities to do that in your program, to kind of go through any questions that arise as folks are doing the course synchronously. So there are a lot of different ways you might manage that depending on the resources you have available to you. And in the chat, again, if you'd like, please share any ideas you have about how you might support teams who are completing this training, or large or small groups of people who are doing this. And so that Marsha wrote that she has new directors take the courses to become familiar with the NRS. So Marsha, are they taking all of the courses, or are there certain ones you recommend? I think that's a great idea. By the way, it's many of the courses, especially our most popular one using NRS data flow, are great introductions to the NRS. And for directors, some of the longer courses are really great in terms of orienting you to how to use the data. Okay. Alrighty. So, like I mentioned earlier in the webinar when we first started, we'd love to come up with a set of FAQs to help you with using these resources to make them a little bit more user-friendly. So if there are any questions and answers you'd like to see added to the NRSOnline FAQ, you can go ahead and type that in the chat, or again, unmute your phone or raise your hand and we'll unmute you to share. In addition, if there are any resources or tools that would be good to have as well, you can share that with us in the chat. Okay, the chat's a little quiet today. So I'm not going to belabor the point, but you all know that you can reach out to us at nrs@air.org with any suggestions or requests for more information or support around the course. If there are any final questions, you can go ahead and type those in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to those as well. And here's our support email address again. Okay. So I've covered most of what I wanted to go through and make sure you knew how to do on the NRSOnline course site. I want to offer an opportunity for you all to give us feedback about this webinar or future webinars by completing the webinar evaluation. There's a link to it just below the chat. And I see some responses are starting to come in, so I'll just take a look at those quickly. The state office in New Mexico just put together a PD system with a team, I guess, responsible for that. And they're going to discuss how to incorporate the courses. Yes. And tracks for specific personnel, Janae says, will be useful. Janae, if you have ideas about what type of personnel, what roles those people are in, that'd be great. I may follow up with you afterwards by email to learn more about what you're doing. Chris says it'd be great to know what new courses are under development. Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit now. We're developing 2 courses with working titles called NRS Basics 1 and 2. And the title is sufficiently descriptive at this point. NRS Basics 1 is going to cover the history of the NRS, the measures. It's a lot of what's in the intro content of the NRSOnline, the NRS Technical Assistance Guide. And we used to have a course called the NRS Basics that was very short. And when we switched to the WIOA legislation, we had to make some updates. So that's still in the works. I think we can look for that next year, as well as NRS Basics 2, which just goes into a little bit more detail in terms of measures and how to report and collect data. And again, next year for those 2 courses. You can stay tuned to the NRS e-notes and announcements on the site about when those are available. I think when they're ready, they're going to look very different from the courses we have now. They're a little bit more immersive. There's audio and more interactive type of activities. So we'll probably do another webinar at that point to announce the courses and how you might use them with your staff. Okay. Alrighty. So I just want to again point out that we have a webinar evaluation that if you have time, we'd love for you to complete so that we can get an idea of how useful this was, what in the future you would want to learn more about, and what other topics in general you're interested in us covering, either through online courses or through webinars or other training and TA opportunities. I want to thank everyone for attending and for your participation, and I'll turn it over to Marcella for any final words.
Thanks so much, Delphinia. You took the words right out of my mouth. So again, if you could, the webinar link, or sorry, the evaluation link will pop up as soon as we close out of this in just a moment. But in the meantime, as I know, I see people getting offline. If you could please be sure to click on that webinar evaluation before you do get off. And thank you again, Delphinia, for walking us through these courses. I know that they're a really incredible resource, and I love that you can do them, on your own, and you don't need to necessarily wait to get that really critical information that they contain. So thank you, Delphinia, for sharing all that information with us, and we will talk to all of you very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.